So hello everyone, my name is Angela Forbes and it's a great pleasure to have you with us today. So welcome to our roundtable discussion to observe International Women's Day 2022. This year's theme is Break the Bias. So whether deliberate or unconscious, bias makes it difficult for women to move ahead. So knowing that bias exists isn't enough, action is needed to make a level playing field. And I'd like to introduce some change makers and incredible women who are leading in their communities. We'll start with Caroline.
Hi, yes, my name is Caroline Logan. I am a single mother of two, which in itself has been a challenge as a leading lady. And my full-time role is Programme Director for Build Force, supporting our military community into careers and construction.
Joanne.
I'm Joanne Hitchmo and I left the Army in November 20 after 30 years service. Most of my service was completed as a single mother. And I left and come on board as one of the recruiters within Zoom.
Fantastic. And Joanne Wood.
Hi everybody, my name's Joanne Wood. I'm working full-time at the moment with the Royal Navy. I'm an air operations officer and I work at RNASU Ilverton. That said, I'm also renovating a house on the side. I love renovating, I love construction, I love property, so I'm looking to transition out of the Navy hopefully within the next 12 months. That's me.
Helen.
Hi everybody, I'm Helen Smith. I had a 23-year career with the Army, serving in both the RLC and the RAMC. I retired end of November 17 and found myself in the construction industry where I've been employed with Skanska ever since.
Perfect, thank you. And Kay?
Hi, my name's Kay Stevenson. I served 9 years in the Royal Air Force as a logistics mover, and in March 2021 I started with Mace as an assistant planning manager, and I'm also undertaking a building surveying degree with UCM.
Great, thank you, Kay. So just as I said at the start, the theme is obviously break the bias. So I think that probably begs the first question of, do you actively call out gender bias discrimination or stereotyping each time you see it? Can I ask that question of anyone?
You know, I haven't really experienced much of that. Where I have called people out is actually where they stereotype me as someone who's ex-military. And it's more of my perceived behaviours having been in the military and how I would lead and deal with individuals, because my way is completely different to what that stereotype is. So I haven't experienced that at all.
But I think adding on that, because I mentioned this last year, so it's all very well complaining about the way you've been treated, but a lot of people don't pull people up on it. So if you don't pull up the person on it, and some people just laugh it off and join it as camaraderie, so that individual doesn't know it's wrong. So it is, I think, as a woman, our role to actually say, no, that's inappropriate, rather than laugh and join in.
And Joanne, when you transitioned over to Zoom, did you feel that same stereotype, the aggressive ex-military women?
A little, yes, but a lot, like Helen said, I've never ever called or pulled anyone or called anybody up about it. But it's something that I should do. Yes, they all think so long in the Army and they expect you to act differently anyway.
Mm-hmm. And Kay, the culture over at Mace, is that quite tolerant, or is there?
I've never sort of found that I've found any bias. I work in a very male dominated environment, especially for the client I work for as well. But I wouldn't even say that I've seen any bias. So I've never pulled anybody up on it because I haven't sort of encountered it. Because I don't feel as if it's there, but I'd hope that if I saw it that I would definitely bring it up, and it's very much sort of said in conversations that, you know, if it's there, that we are to make sure that we bring it up and we identify it to line managers, because it's not something that's tolerated.
Yeah. And Joanne, Wood, you're obviously still serving at the moment.
I would say that I've been potentially quite lucky that I've not experienced any personal bias, as far as I'm aware anyway. That's never come across to me. I have heard in conversation with certain contemporaries that certain women may be treated differently, and I think that's for people who've had children, for instance. So some of my female colleagues who've had children and have had time away from the workplace, or have been given shore drafts as a result of having children, have been seen to be treated as favourable. Now, I think that's just a common misconception from the males that I work with. As I don't have children, I've not been able to be able to have any kind of argument against that, really, because I can kind of see that my career has occasionally, somebody else was given a job that I was supposed to be put into because she'd recently had a child and she was going back to work and needed that kind of work-life balance routine. However, any other bias, I think it's probably because I'm a strong female anyway, and I don't think I have had any particular difficulty in that environment, and I don't think anybody would necessarily be able to say anything to me anyway. As I say, I think that's just a strong characteristic, and I think that's probably quite common in a lot of women who've been in the military as well. Those who've served generally tend to be used to working in a very male-dominated environment and tend to be quite strong characters.
And I think it's true of construction as well, and it's a really good point. And I think as well, if you are in a male-dominated sector, you're seen to have earned your stripes.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I think the other thing with bias as well is sometimes it's not what you hear, it's just sometimes how you're made to feel, or it's maybe what's said about you kind of behind your back when you're not in the room as well. So I expect for kind of young women watching this as well, it's sometimes difficult to put your finger on it, on what it is. It's more maybe just how you feel, and then you're weighing that up again. Is that just paranoia? Is that your own insecurities that are kind of shouting loud in your head? So yeah, I expect it probably is an uncomfortable environment. And just for those that had served for you, Helen, as well, were there any other women ex-military who admired you or astounded you, or do you think you were kind of breaking ground on your own merits because you were the first in your corps or your unit?
When I was serving, what I thought was great, and actually I find it in Skanska as well, is it didn't really matter whether you were male or female as long as you were good at your job. And I just continue to follow that. And it's only when people point it out to you saying, oh, you know, both in civilian and military worlds, you do realise you're the only female in that particular room. And then you look around and you check and you go, oh, yes, but at the time you're in there, you just get on with the job. You do, you know, what you're trained to do, either military or now in construction, and you do the best that you can. And therefore, that's what I think is great, that 9 times out of 10, it's how you do your job, not the fact that you're male or female.
And just on that then, do you think that, so way back 20, 30 years ago when we started in our career, nobody pointed out the fact you were a woman? You just had to be there, do your job, prove your worth, add value, and just deal with the men. Do you think now for young women coming into those sectors and being reminded that they sit in a kind of diverse pool and being reminded that they're females and being put in a female community and being labelled like that, do you think it makes it harder for them or easier?
I think the world has improved significantly, and certainly, I can only really focus on Skanska and the fact that they are huge on inclusion and diversity with the various network groups, and there are more and more women, and I think that makes it easier. And it's just getting that balance right where you're not treated any differently. There's not that sort of sway just because you're female. And, you know, when I cast my mind back to when I joined the army, I was lucky. I joined the Royal Logistic Corps. There were quite a number of females in the Corps, and certainly in the unit I was serving in, which really did help. And I wasn't a trailblazer. You know, I wasn't the first woman to do various things. But when you do look at some of the women who had that challenge, then that would be a different story. But as the years go on, you have more and more women coming in to do these roles that you don't traditionally associate with females. And it's fantastic. And I think it gives a great balance to the workplace. And it's, you know, it can only get better. There's lots of improvements to make everywhere, but we're certainly improving on that.
Yeah, I remember when the diversity agenda kicked off within my employer a few years ago. I think there was a lot of kind of senior females that were a bit disgruntled by it in terms of, well, why do we need this? We're doing fine as it is. And I do remember a senior male saying, you've had it so tough for so long. We're going to help you whether you want it or not. So just accept it and enjoy it and stop moaning about it. I think he'd just been everybody had been bleating at him for weeks about this diversity agenda being launched, and it was the women that didn't want it. I think they thought we're kind of doing this on our own, and I think to label us as a female isn't actually going to help us. And it's quite bizarre. I think there was probably more noise by the females than there were actually the males, believe it or not, when it first launched, but it did land well. And I think we just need to remember that having been doing our careers for all these decades, we're just of a different ilk. And as Caroline knows, when you've got a young 14, 15, 16-year-old daughter that's just made of different stuff now, you do worry about them, and probably just how they're going to navigate their way through kind of the corporate world or cope with coming into the military. Is that something you think about, Caroline?
Yeah, I'm very keen for my daughter to worth, for her to have her confidence, her own personality. Talking about bias, actually, she's one of those people that inspires me, because she doesn't like when people are talked to incorrectly or referenced incorrectly, whether it be by race or gender, and she's the first one to pull them up, whether boy, girl, whatever. She doesn't like it, and I think, you know, if that's the way she is, we're doing all right. But I always remember, actually, just let me say, it was years ago when they were very small, and I had Radio 4 on in the background, and there was an interview on about how women aren't paid the same as men. And I think at the time she was about 8, and she came, she said, "What? What's that? Why aren't women paid the same as men? That's ridiculous." And I think that's all we have to say.
That's a good one. And to Kay, for you as well, have you got a female kind of mentoring scheme within MACE, or is it just done on merit and personality? How does your employer deal with it?
I haven't sort of encountered overly a mentoring scheme, but we've got women at MACE, and we've also got the military network as well. So obviously the networks are there to reach out if we ever need them. And I found sort of the military network have been very helpful as I sort of started to work within MACE, that, you know, they were all there to help and support, especially sort of that transition between you know, military and you know, civilian working, and there are obviously sort of female veterans that are starting to work within the construction industry. I know there were only sort of a handful of us to start with at MACE, but I think it's starting to get a few more. But yeah, the communities, you know, within businesses are all there to sort of help and assist. You know, we've got Pride, and we've got you know, the sort of the enabled networks as well. So they're all there to support, which is fantastic. And so, you know, you're not sort of alone if you ever need any advice and stuff, which is great. You know, when you're sort of starting out and sort of going into a new business.
Yeah, and to Joanne Hitchmo as well, if you've got kind of, whether it's young female neighbours or nieces or cousins or anyone around you, what kind of career advice are you giving them at the moment?
So things have changed since the early 90s when I first joined the army, and things are put in place which we never had. So my encouragement is, if you want to do something which females typically don't, go for it, but make the change. And here at Zoom, we're trying to encourage more and more females to join us as labourers, go up and learn a new skill. And the same on the fibre side as well, because you don't see many females in our industry within those roles. HR, recruitment, you get them within my role, these roles, but trying to get them to break it and think, yeah, I can do this, because things are fed into young females that, oh, you're female, you can't do that. But yes, they can. Mm. And being ex-military, we know you would join the Royal Signals, go into the Royal Engineers. So it's no different to civilian life.
Mm-hmm. And do you miss your military life?
yes, I've only been out, well, just over a year now, and for doing so long, yeah, but I still have that military network and support around me as well. So
yeah. And in terms of your new employer as well at the moment, have you got a good spread of female seniors within the organisation, or is it just a work in progress at the moment?
No, we have our HR director. She sits on the senior leadership team, and then cascading down, we have females in a variety of roles within Zoom.
So it's, yeah, the options are there if the desire is, which is actually probably the best type of employer. So it's there for the grabs if you've got an interest. And to kind of Joanne Wood as well, in terms of if you got any young females within your family, then you wonder kind of what their future is going to look like. Are you just more confident that the world's improving and it'll be better by the time they come of working age?
Absolutely, yeah. My niece is 5 years old. She's absolutely gorgeous and I love her to bits. And I'm really confident that actually her future is going to be really good. Both of her parents are military as well, so they're both in the RAF serving at the moment. But they haven't just given her a pink bedroom or anything like that. She's got Lego, she's got toy cars all over the And I keep telling her that she's going to be this Scottish cold water surfing architect, because basically she runs in and out of the sea all of the time, and she's got so much more confidence and so much more options open to her than she ever possibly would have done for someone who was born in my generation. I was still born in 1980, so for me there was still an expectation that you did typing on a typewriter at high school as one of your GCSEs. She's not going to have that. She's going to have proper IT skills. They're learning to code as children, those kind of things. And these are the things that are breaking across the genders that are going to have a bit more, give them better career opportunities when they grow up, rather than having this segmented idea that girls can only be nurses and any other typically female careers. But yeah, she's going to have those options open to her, so I'm convinced I'm going to push her down an architecture route, because she keeps trying to build buildings and I love it. It's fantastic.
I think it's good that you're going down that kind of discipline route, because we've got a little 8-year-old Holly who we just all utterly adore. She's my little niece, and she is a ballerina, so I picked her up earlier and took her to our ballet exam. And we're all encouraging her, if you want to be a ballerina, you can be a ballerina. You'll be a great ballerina. You're so elegant and beautiful. And it's you catch hold of yourself and you just think, oh my goodness, like my mum and dad would never have said that to me. You had to have an education and a job and a career and a mortgage. And it's true of her mum, who's a lawyer, again, just a very structured upbringing. And here we are as two professional women saying you can be a cat, or you can be a ballerina, you can do anything you want to be. So you do look at it and you just think, why are we speaking like that? Because you just want them to be happy and you just want them to do what they want to do. And maybe by the time they get to teenage years, we'll start being a bit more pragmatic with her. But at the moment, we're certainly encouraging dreams and aspirations and all sorts of things.
And I've got an 8-year-old, and it's very much the same, because with my husband and I both having a military background, and I'm still connected with the reserves. Everything she sees me doing, she's quite competitive, but she's itching to go out, and she realizes that she can, as you just said, she can be whatever she wants to be. And because I'm still in the Army Reserve, and I've just come back from helping to organise the Inter-Service Bobsleigh Championships. She sees and hears about what I do with the ice, and she wants to do that. But then, as you say, in the next breath, she's tap dancing and ballet dancing, and she's just moving around. But how wonderful that a child of this generation can now choose to do whatever they want. The sky really is the limit for them, which is superb.
And it's confidence in the parents as well, isn't it, to encourage it?
My niece is like an Elsa. She's got her Elsa dress on. She's spinning around, but she's got toy cars in her hands. It's something I wouldn't have seen 15 years ago, 20 years. Yeah.
It's exactly how it should be. I think that's exactly how it should be. Kind of Lego cars and trucks in one hand and a pink dress in the other, and whatever she feels that day, until her heart's content. The other themes that are coming from kind of break the bias are around women's empowerment, women's health, women in sport. So it's almost as if when you're kind of looking through the itinerary, you just think, my goodness, like women can go off in any direction and do anything. And we've picked up on those themes, Helen with her bobsleigh and all the hobbies. And I know Caroline loves to run, and she's out there kind of leading a male running team. So it is really good when you're looking through everything that International Women's Day stands for. It's not just about women having a career, because we are entitled to so much more than that. And it is good that that is really being recognised. And I am mindful as well, just kind of listening to everybody speak, we've had it tougher than a lot of other women as well, but we've worked through that. So this is a bunch of particularly strong women that hopefully have left a legacy of bursting through glass ceilings and making it just that little bit easier for others coming through, or we're championing the cause and encouraging other women to come into industry or to the armed forces. And it's not all been easy. I think if you were to go back and ask your 22-year-old self, you would have seen us in tears or just restless at 2 a.m, kind of wondering how we're going to get through issues or personality clashes, or a line manager that doesn't like us, or a boyfriend that's dumped us. There has been kind of hard moments through it as well. But I think we've definitely been able to navigate through, and maybe that's just having really strong females that inspired us, whether it's mums or aunts or grandparents as well. I think it definitely helps. And in terms of kind of sport for you, Caroline, how important is that break, that release?
Yeah, I think for me it's definitely where I let off steam. You know, we've all had our, well, not all, but I had a very tricky time a few years ago, and running was definitely my solace. And I'm not very fast, so it did make me laugh when Angela said I'm leading a team of male veterans, because I'm not, because they're all young and much faster than me, but I've organised it. But no, I do just, you know, some days I'll run really fast, some days I won't, but it's my thinking time, it's my alone time, it's my inspirational time, it's my, you know, getting my backbone time, when on those days where I sometimes don't want to get through another day, and you just go for a run and you feel like a different person. So yeah, for me it definitely works. Everyone has their own coping mechanisms, and running is definitely mine.
So just on the theme then, on kind of gender bias, would we all be able to just offer one piece of advice if somebody is experiencing that, whether it's at home with a partner or even within their own family who are trying to limit their capabilities, or if it's in the workplace? Caroline, should we start with you? What advice would you give either your younger self or someone else?
I actually wanted to say this earlier when you were talking about my daughter, and I think the key thing that I've always said to her, and you know, I'm 10 years on my own, and I love being on my own, and I think the main thing to say to a female is to stay strong and believe in yourself and stay true to yourself. Don't change for anyone, don't change for a man, for an employer or anything. Just be confident in yourself and learn to love yourself, and then you'll just fly.
I love that. And Joanne Hitchmore, your advice?
Exactly the same as what Caroline, and always reach out and speak to someone. Don't sit there and bottle up any issues or worries, because there's so many people out there, so many different agencies you can chat to if you didn't want to speak to anybody within work. So yeah.
Thank you. And Joanne Wood?
I think there's probably two things. I think firstly, I would say don't ever doubt yourself. I spent many years doubting myself. I went from a very female focused industry. I worked for Nationwide Building Society before the Navy, and I had a great group of females, and we got on like a house on fire. But coming into the Navy was a bit of a culture shock, because it was so heavily male. And I think getting used to being able to talk in public, being able to have conversations with men, to almost argue their point sometimes, or to be able to contradict what they're saying and offer different alternative viewpoints. So definitely don't doubt yourself. You've got a valid place in the workplace, and your voice is definitely most needed to be heard. So don't ever stop yourself from saying those things. And I think a second one as well is don't ever put yourself second to anything else. So if you want to do something in your career, or if you want to go and take up a new hobby, don't think that just because Mr. Boyfriend is there or whatever it is, don't allow that to stop you, because there's been a few times in my life as well where I put my needs on hold for somebody else's needs to be first, and that's never worked out well for me. So I would say definitely put yourself first and don't ever doubt yourself.
Thank you, that's brilliant. And Kay?
Yeah, so same sort of thing as Caroline is. Yeah, sort of have confidence in yourself. And yeah, sort of echoing what the others have said, always put yourself first. I didn't join the RAF till sort of quite late in sort of my lifetime. So I was 28 when I joined, and it was something I'd always wanted to do, but I'd put it off for partners. Yeah, I actually ended up divorcing my husband at the time, and went on my way and ended up being a single parent, because that was my choice, and I think it was the best choice I made. So yeah, definitely put yourself first, because that's exactly sometimes what you need to do. And as we're here with strong women, and I think that's sometimes what you need to do for yourself, to put yourself first, and be confident in that choice.
Yeah, fantastic. So listen, thank you to Kay, Helen, Caroline, Rebecca, Joanne Hitchmo and Joanne Wood for their incredible contribution today. International Women's Day makes us stop and question all we see and hear, and unfortunately biases may be natural to some, but they can be broken and they need to be broken. So today celebrates the cultural, political and socio-economic achievements of women, and this video alone shows that we have broken the bias. A collection of women with successful careers in both the armed forces and in construction. But let's do more. Let's make this the norm. So ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Let's break the bias.